Hey guys, welcome back to my channel KnowledgeKeen, and this is your friend Wasim, and today we are going to see how to do styling in React using CSS. Okay, there are multiple ways to do that, but today we are going to see all the ways how you can basically do a styling. There are different kinds of ways, but we are going to see only CSS ways, not SCSS or SAS or any other things, but because we are going to see it later in the later videos. But today it is related to core CSS. Okay, how you can basically, it's just to understand how you can do a simple styling using CSS. So before wasting any time, let's jump onto the video. But before we proceed, you know what to do. You just need to click on the subscribe button to keep watching the latest and upcoming videos. So let's not waste any more time and dive in just into the code. So as you can see on the screen right now, probably we have created some components. Let's go ahead and create a simple new component. You know how to do that now. Let's name it as styling component, something like this, .js. Okay, and this would be a styling component, and export default styling component. Return simple h1 hello world, and we are going to do this, render this in simple app component, which we usually always do. Styling component. Okay, we have imported it here. See, it is imported from pages and styling component. You do not have to do a .js, which you already know if you have seen my previous videos, but simple. Let's run this. I usually like to run it from it's BPM npm start. This is going to just open it in a simple Chrome window, and yes, we have rendered our hello world, which is our first styling component that we know. So there are three ways to do a simple styling in CSS. One is inline CSS, which we already know how to do that using some inline style attributes and inline within the line CSS. The second one is external CSS, but the third one, which usually React has, that is called as modules. Okay, so how to use these modules we are going to see in this video, but let's go ahead with the first type, that is inline CSS. Simple. We just have a style attribute, curly braces. So here you are going to render an object. So within these two curly braces, we are going to add one more object. So this is a CSS object. Now how this CSS is going to be, like simple color, I would rather say red. If I just do this, you can go ahead, see the color is red. If you go inspect it, you're going to see style color as red. So it's a simple thing that we usually do in HTML. So in HTML or in plain HTML5, what we do, we write something like this: style equal to something like this, color red. But as we are doing it in React, there is nothing simple. So everything is going to be like in simple curly braces and objects. So this is going to be on object. So you can add multiple properties to this object, like color is red. You can add a simple background as like blue or something. So you can add multiple properties to this inline CSS. The only thing that you need to remember, that whenever we have something like background color, so whenever there is something hyphen, it is not hyphens in this. We are going to use camel case, like we usually do with class name and all that. So it would be background. You can see it, the VS Code is smart. It is already giving me this option. So if I want to add a background color, you can simply do it using camel case, and it works. So this is a simple inline CSS. The biggest drawback of it is, if I want to add some more tags, right, and some more text, then again to color this, to add a different color, we need to rewrite this whole thing. So let's say that the color and the background property is still same. The color is red for it, the background color is yellow, but we need to add these two lines, two properties all over again. So this is one of the biggest drawback of inline CSS. See, it works, but we have to duplicate the code. We have to rewrite the code all over again. That's the reason people usually jump onto the external CSS. So let's see how to write an external CSS. Writing of CSS would be the absolute same. Usually we create another folder where we keep all the assets. Okay, it's a good practice. It's not compulsory, but it's a good practice to write something like this. I created another folder within assets folder, that is CSS, and within CSS, let me say that it is styles.css. So this is how you we simply create a simple CSS. Let me say that it would be hello world text. Okay, so using a dot, all these things are similar to what you write in simple CSS. Everything is same because it's a CSS file. So dot means class. So we are adding a class that is hello world text. Let's say that we add, it is CSS. There is no camel casing. CSS background hyphen color. Let's say that add a color like tan, and color would be like blue or something. Sorry, I'm very bad with the colors. So we are going to add this into our style component. So how to do this? I'll just remove this inline CSS for now, and this would be like simple class name, what we usually do in CSS. But before that, we need to import the CSS, and that would be from assets CSS folder. I would be importing my styles.css, and let me just copy the class name, hello world text. It works. I added a simple background color. Oops, there is no inverted commas into CSS. So hello world, we added a simple class and a simple class name, and we imported it. So now you can use this same property to n number of elements into your HTML, into your JSX. Basically, we are not doing HTML, we are doing JSX. So that's the reason it is not class, it is class name. And I can still have the same hello world. I'll just copy it, text, and you can see that it is having the same thing, the same color. So now you can just, you're writing the CSS once and you are reutilizing it the same way we do it in normal programming. So this is the way you write an external CSS. We saw inline CSS, we saw external CSS, but with inline CSS, in some of the projects, if you're working in a company, you might see that they are not writing all the CSS over here. If you're using material, they also do a similar kind of a thing, that if you're using inline CSS, let's jump back to the inline CSS. We have the style property, and we have like color equal to, in the inverted commas, red or something, right? But you might see that they don't render this object here. They usually create this as a variable. It's one and the same thing. There is nothing that you're doing different, but it is one of the same thing. Const, let's say that my styles something. Yep, my styles equal to the same object I created, and I wrote my styles. Let me add a background color so that we can just see background color. That would be yellow. So that, let's see the difference. Yes. So now the background color is yellow, the color is red, and this also works. You can do it both the ways. You can just start creating multiple objects of a CSS, and also you can do it simple like this. But that is one and the same thing. You're just using an additional variable to do the same thing. You just copy this without semicolon. You do this, that is still one and the same thing. Nothing changes, but it's just a add-on way to do it. You can just create variables, and you can put all the objects into there. So we have seen now what is internal CSS, what is external CSS. So now, as we saw that there is a drawback for inline CSS, that if you want to apply the same CSS to multiple elements, you just have to copy paste it and duplicate it. Basically, you have a case of duplication there. The second, the problem of external CSS is that, let's say that I have two CSS, okay, and both of them have the same color. Instead of talking, let's go ahead and do it. I have styles, and I have, let's say, my styles. .css, right? I want to import both of them. So I also want to import styles. I also want to add my styles, and let's say that some of my colleague wrote the same class name. Now, do you see what the problem is? I don't want the background color tan. Let's say that I want the background color as black and the color as red. So it is a case of like overriding. You don't know which one is going to render when, because now there are, even for us, it is going to create a complication that two of the files have same class name and we are importing both the CSS files into one component. Now you don't know which class is going to render when, right? Usually the second one renders because it is overriding the previous one, but again there goes the confusion that which browser is going to render which one. Again, the whole confusion for us also, that if you want to override these classes, if you want to use some properties of the other files, there is a huge complication with all these writing external CSS. So to avoid this issue, now this is a waste for me because I'm not using this particular class name, but it is still residing into my file, whereas some of the other file might use this hello world text. So to avoid this issue, React came with a brilliant solution that is called as modules. So modules is also present with other part of like your frameworks, but for now let's say that React modules, what we are going to create, is very interesting. So how to create a module? There is one note to remember, that whenever you are going to create a module, okay, it should have an extension .module.css, because if you don't write, we'll see why it is important. Let's say that my module.module.css. Okay, so let's say we add the same thing over in this module. It's same CSS. Okay, there is nothing different. It's just that we have added another extension that is .module.css. Now let me just quickly go ahead and comment these two out, and let me import my module file. How to import a module CSS? We need to pull it into a variable. So we usually do this something like this. Is it smart? Come on. Nope, it's not helping me out. So my module.module.css, and now all the CSS that you have in your module can be used from this specific style attribute. So how to do that? It is not going to be a string now. It is going to be an object. Style dot. Using this style object, it is going to hold all the CSS that you have into that particular module, and using this style variable that we just created, something like an alias from this file. So we are exporting all this CSS into this variable, and we are going to use this variable into your into the simple class name, and we are going to see what changes does it make. If you see, we have this background color black and the color red, and it works. It simply works. Now we have to also remember, if you're using like React 17, I used to get a problem that whenever you create a module, it was not rendering immediately. So we get a confusion that whether we have written this module correct or not. It's always a good option that if it is not rendering immediately, just recompile your application again, it will start working. So that's a trick that I learned a different way, but you should remember that if it is not rendering immediately, try to recompile it. Okay, just stop your existing compilation and recompile it, and it will start working. So that usually happened with me when I was working with React 17. So that's just a note to remember. Right now, I think in React 18 they improvise something and it automatically started working for me. The biggest benefit of this is what drawback we had in our external CSS. Let's say that I create another one. Oops. A similar copy to your my module, like my styles.module.css. This too have the background color tan, and color blue. So this is also having the same hello world text class. All of them are having the same hello world text class, but here the difference is one is having background color black, my module is, and color is red, and this one is having background color tan and the color is blue. But now as we are exporting everything into a variable, this resolves our issue. If you see my styles, I'll just say this as my style something, and you can use the same class from two different files. Oops. And you can use the same class name for two different from two different files, and you can see what React is doing in the bottom here is it is taking that particular class from that particular file, okay, and adding some extra hashing technology and creating a unique class. So here you added a class called as hello world text, but if you see over here, the hello world text is there, but with the whole class name is changed. So React creates unique class name for each single module file, okay, for each class from each single module, which makes a huge difference because now all my classes are unique, and whatever classes or CSS I apply, those would be unique. You can reuse those classes, but still again they would be unique, and as a result it is faster in compilation, it is better using in CSS, there won't be any duplication. So all the drawbacks that you had with inline and external CSS can be achieved over here. Basically those over drawbacks becomes the advantages in modules. So it's always a good practice, start using modules, and I hope this was an interesting chapter for you in this video, and I hope I was able to explain you as much as possible. If you like this video, please give it as a thumbs up. Also I'll probably keep my Instagram handles and all those, because I keep posting interview questions, some important tips and tricks. There are a lot of stuff that that I want to start posting on Instagram, and I'm trying to post on Instagram and Reels as much as possible. So that's an interesting journey altogether again. So please subscribe, let's grow together, and thank you very much.